Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I know most of you, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Cristina Urioste, and my company's name is Rasa Foods. The first thing I want to share with you, a little food for thought, is this. We're going to talk about food today. The reason there is so much imbalance and dis-ease in the world today is because we have lost our connection to the earth. And we have the opportunity to reconnect with the earth every day, 3 times a day, in fact, through the food that we eat. So just think about that for a moment. When I graduated from college, I moved to the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, and I lived on 120 acres of land with my boyfriend. My boyfriend at the time's family. They still have these 120 acres of land. And it was the first time I ever had my own garden, and I grew my own food from seed to fruit. So I'll never forget, growing my own tomatoes and having my first homegrown tomato. And I literally had this epiphany. I had this realization that changed my life forever. I realized how the difference that good food made in my life and in my well-being. It just tasted like something I'd never eaten before, even better than anything I'd ever found at the health food store in Austin, Texas, anywhere else. Growing your own food, I really had this realization, this connection that, my participation in the cultivating and the nurturing of this plant made a profound difference in the flavor of the food itself. So it was around that same time that I became a student of Ayurveda and ultimately the chef of this school of Ayurveda in Asheville, North Carolina. And so today, a lot of these ancient truths that I'm going to share with you come from the Ayurvedic tradition. And the reason why I have chosen to bring forth these ancient truths is because a lot of this, the reason that these ancient truths have held truth for so long is because they still bear truth today. And it's very much in alignment with this reemergence of this sustainable living culture that is true today, that we are remembering. And that's what I love about Ayurveda. First of all, I'll explain to you what Ayurveda is. Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word. Ayurveda comes from India. Often it is referred to as yoga's sister science. Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word that means the science of life. And so it's very similar to yoga in that, yoga is a series of breath and stretching and postures that helps to realign the body, mind, and spirit. Ayurveda has the same goal, but it's in a much more ordinary way. There's kind of a magic in yoga that you feel this realignment and this presence. And Ayurveda does the same thing, but on a day-to-day basis. So I like to say that it's a non-medicine model of health and healing where food is the medicine. So the idea is that if we live in harmony with the earth, and if we choose foods that are appropriate to our own body types and in accordance to the seasons, then the idea is that we don't get sick. Now, of course, there's all these outside factors and, that affect our well-being and such, but it's a beautiful life way of holistic health and living. And the idea is to create a life of balance. So beyond those, particulars of, what foods are perfect for my body or what food is particular for this season, to maintain this balance, there's all sorts of other principles that I learned, in my early 20s that I still carry forth today. So yes, we can give credit to Ayurveda, but the truth is this is all inherent wisdom that we carry. I like to say that what I'm sharing with you today is not going to seem like new information to you, because what I'm actually sharing are ancestral memories. Like I'm going to help you remember things that we've known our whole lives, that we've known for lifetimes, because food is memory. And for example, I don't know how many of you saw the cartoon Ratatouille. It's a great Pixar film. Well, anyway, there's this, really grumpy old man that owns this restaurant, or I can't remember exactly what he owns, but, there's this rat in the kitchen that makes this delicious ratatouille, and there's this perfect scene that, the nervous chef, feeds the grumpy old man this ratatouille, and he takes a bite, and then, like, suddenly, they're in a poof, it takes his memory back to when he was a child and his mother is serving him this ratatouille, and he's flooded with these memories of, these beautiful memories of his relationship with his mother, back to his innocence. And so in many ways, food, serves this very powerful function for us, not only in this lifetime, but lifetime after lifetime, That's why sometimes, when you eat something, it just feels very familiar, or it floods you with these memories. That's a very special, sacred thing. And I'm here to help you remember that. So I want to talk about the kitchen as a sacred space. So have you ever noticed that when you go to social gatherings or parties, people have a tendency to naturally gravitate towards the kitchen? And that is because the kitchen is the heart of the home. This is where the magic happens. It's a place of alchemy, a place of creation. I mean, remember, you are what you eat. So what you do in the kitchen is sacred. It's holy. So try to work that into your day-to-day basis. Regard your kitchen as a sacred space. When you enter the kitchen, it's like entering a temple. And that said, as far as from like an energetic perspective, you want to keep your kitchen clean and simple, It's really important to kind of get rid of all the stuff that you don't use in the kitchen, like if you have an electric chopper and, 2 toasters, all of that extra, all these gadgets, and although it's wonderful technology, we want to keep our kitchen clean energy. So, I would encourage you to really go through your kitchen, go through your cabinets, and donate that stuff to, maybe there are families out there that would use these appliances more so than you would. I keep in my kitchen a blender, a juicer, and just a few items that I really need. But there are certain things that in the Ayurvedic tradition, one of the foundation is, we as humans are organic beings. So the goal in Ayurveda is to live with the rhythms of nature. So, if you look at it on a broader term, go to sleep when the sun goes down, wake up when the sun rises. It's like live with the rhythms of nature. So we really want to eat foods, and when we prepare food, I was taught as an Ayurvedic chef to make everything from scratch. And I know it takes a little more time, but in this way, it's like we are participating in this alchemical magic to really transform this raw material into something that can be a real blessing and a real addition to our health and well-being, our happiness. I love what you said yesterday about how, good nutrition is what provides, is what fosters motivation. You said that, good nutrition is required to, literally give you the guts to do something. So, okay, so to explain that on a deeper level, Ayurveda says, never prepare food when you're in a bad mood. Why? Because on a subtle level, that negative energy will penetrate the food. And then it will, on a subtle level, poison the people that ultimately eat the food, energetically. Now, you can take that as literally or as, it's just something to think about. And in the same vein, I would recommend never eating food when you're in a bad mood, Sweet foods will turn sour in your digestive tract. And I take this to heart. If I'm ever grumpy and I need to prepare food for someone, I will take a moment, I'll go breathe, meditate, take a few breaths, do whatever it takes, maybe turn on a good song, dance it out. Do whatever you need to do. And sometimes it just means if I'm in a really bad mood or really sad or something, I'll order in, I'll just go out to dinner, because we don't really take into consideration the subtle energies, the intention behind what we put into food and how that affects our body. So on the flip side of all of this, as a chef and as with my personal clients, I always pour my heart and soul and love into the food that I'm preparing. I've also had patients that were having, chemotherapy or very ill patients, or clients. So I would put intentional healing thoughts and healing prayers into the food. I like to remember that every thought is a prayer. Every thought, creates a wavelength of energy. And so when you're, intentionally preparing food, you really want to, direct that energy into the food. And in my opinion, it really makes a difference. I remember in the beginning when I didn't have much experience as a chef, I would just pray that the food tasted good. Hopefully this is going to work. And to my surprise, more often than not, most of the time actually, the food was great, and I would get all these great compliments. And it was a pleasant surprise because, I personally didn't go to culinary school. I kind of practiced I was trained, but often I felt like I was undertrained, in comparison to the other chefs and all over the world. So pay attention. It's about paying attention when you're there. And then, let's see, putting love into your food. Okay, so why not? Let's talk about blessing our food. I remember as a student of Ayurveda, I always thought, well, wow, this sounds like religious information, or, and I was very, careful not to be too preachy about what, I was sharing with my friends, when I was learning, because I don't know, back then, and even now, I want to be really careful with the words that I choose, because no one likes to be preached to. No one likes to be, told how to be in relationship with anything, really, because we all are here, we're learning on our own. But I've really found that something that's really powerful is to bless the food. And that can simply just be recognizing your food as, it's gratitude, essentially. We were talking about gratitude yesterday. We have to remember that the food is what feeds us. The food is what nourishes us. Our cells, we are made up. We are what we eat. I've adopted a practice of taking a moment to consciously be thankful of everything that goes into my body. I'm not a vegetarian, so I do think about where my food comes from, and I thank that chicken, or I thank that lamb, or I thank that buffalo before I eat it. I like to believe that on a higher level, if the animals, the plants, they all can feel our appreciation. And, knowing that life is this limitless birth, rebirth, that if they are happy to give their lives, if they know that it will nourish and nurture us as well. So, and blessing the food comes in any form. I've shared with most of you my favorite blessing. It's a quickie. I like to just say Om Yum, and in doing that, it's like a quick way to say thank you to the food, and thank you, for the nourishment and the strength and the wisdom that I am imbibing through this food. Another aspect in Ayurveda that I would like to share is about giving an offering back to the earth before you eat. So this is an interesting practice that I've adopted, and I don't necessarily encourage everyone to do this, but I particularly like to do it. It's an honorable thing. When I'm preparing food, I very rarely taste the food or eat the food while I eat it, while I'm preparing it, because the idea is that the first bite goes back to our mother, goes back to where it came from, our Mother Earth. So in the Ayurvedic tradition, there's a beautiful tradition where we take a little bit of every piece of the food that we're preparing. We bless the food, we say a Sanskrit mantra over the food, and then we put that little piece of food into our compost pile or into our fire and let it burn and go back to the earth. I've adopted my own method of doing this in that instead of, when I'm eating in a group of people, I won't ever say anything, but I never take the first bite. I always wait until someone else takes the first bite. And that's my own personal way of offering, letting someone else enjoy the food first. It's just kind of it's a respect thing. It's something that I've developed with the food. So, I don't know, it's just something to think about. Getting back to the kitchen, and I mentioned about simplifying your kitchen and getting rid of certain appliances that you may not need or use. With the subtleties of energy and vibration, there is an electric energy. So the Ayurvedic tradition encourages us to, when I grind, when I'm preparing spices, for example, at home, rather than using like a coffee grinder to grind, cumin and coriander and different spices, I like to dry toast them on a flame and then grind them with a mortar and pestle. And I still do this at home all of the time. By doing this, I'm participating that much more in, putting my own energy into the food. And it's a joy. It's just something that I would like to share with you. So also, I want to encourage everyone. I don't know how experienced all of you feel or confident you are in the kitchen, but I want to remind everyone that it's not about how good of a cook that you are. I mean, the kitchen should be a place of creativity and exploration. It's about the enjoyment that you put inside of the kitchen. I really love, there's a certain joy and magic of preparing food with people. It's just as there is eating with people. So typically I've found that no matter how good or bad of a cook you are, if you're enjoying yourself, it usually turns out pretty good. So just remember that, I love preparing food with people, and also something else to keep in mind if you aren't a seasoned cook is that people really love to be fed. It's a beautiful thing to cook for someone, and no matter what, people feel that energy from you. So I'll never forget when I was in college, there was this surfer guy that lived downstairs in the apartments, and he used to make eggs, and he would invite me down to eat breakfast with him. And I remember he would always burn the eggs, and they weren't very good, but I can't tell you how much it meant to me that he would call me up and say, come down and eat with me. And it was just such a beautiful energy exchange, and I would eat the whole thing, and just that joy of being fed. Really, I didn't care that it didn't taste good. You know what I mean? So I just encourage everyone to find the joy and enjoyment when you prepare food, because in the long run, it really makes a big difference. The other aspect of the energetics of food that I would like to share with you is to use all five senses in the kitchen. Smell, listen to the sound. I have a particular meditation. It's a ghee making meditation. Ghee is clarified butter. So you're essentially separating the the soluble the fat from the oil of the butter. And when you're doing this, you sit in silence and you're slowly cooking the butter, and you're listening to the different sounds that the butter is making. First it sounds like rain on a tin roof, and then it sounds like a babbling brook, and then it sounds like a big burp of, like a in the ocean. It's just like, start to listen to your food, and there's this beauty in that. And then the other less obvious sense that we need to utilize in the kitchen is touch. I don't know if any of you ever went to the store when you were kids, but there would be like dried beans in these big containers, and you just want to stick your hands in. Did you guys ever do that? I teach these Ayurvedic cooking technique workshops where we do a grains and beans class. So I have a big bowl of red beans, black beans, garbanzo beans, and then rice, bulgur, all these different beans and grains, and we pass them around, and we put our hands in them, and we touch them, and we feel the different energy of each of the beans and the grains. And it's just something that we, now we use, a fork and knife, and in India and in a lot of other places, everyone eats with their hands. And by doing this in this ancient tradition, we talk about how we contain the 5 elements in our fingers: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And so when we eat with our hands, there's this synergy, this meeting of all 5 of the elements, and then we put it in our mouth. And it's just this beautiful connection that, I encourage all of us to reincorporate into our lives, I also want to invite you all to... From time to time, I encourage each of you to have an intentionally silent meal. Practice quietude. Turn your meal into a meditation. It's about being present with your food. It's about being... there's a word in Sanskrit called sadhana. Is anyone familiar with this word? Yeah? Okay, great. Sadhana simply means sacred practice. So sadhana encompasses all of our activities. It's about turning whatever activity you like to do into a moving meditation. For Sean, it's golf. For Android, it's his art. For me, it's cooking. It's about, or gardening. It's like about turning whatever you're doing into a meditation. It's about mindfulness in the kitchen, mindfulness in whatever you're doing. It's about turning off the music, turning off the television, and making whatever it is you're doing into a sacred act. Not that music's bad, but if you are going to listen to music, make it a soothing, positive, energetic music. But it's just about being present with what you're doing. And so I invite you to be present when you're either preparing food or when you're eating food. You have this opportunity all of the time. And it just makes everything a little more special. And in that vein, another thing I like to say all the time is, when you eat, have a seat. Like too many of us are always on the go, in the rush. We're eating in the car, we're like eating while we're talking on the phone or eating on the computer. There's something very beautiful about being present with the meal, sitting down, smelling it, tasting it, chewing enough. We don't chew our food enough. Remember, all disease and imbalance begins in the digestive tract. And chewing, the mixing of the saliva with the food really helps break down the food, so that when you swallow the food, if you're swallowing without chewing your food enough, the body is going to have to produce it's natural for the body to spritz a little hydrochloric acid whenever we're swallowing our food. And that just helps break down the food so that in the stomach it will digest efficiently and properly. If we're not chewing our food enough, if we're swallowing big chunks of our food, which is a very common thing, our bodies shoot out a lot more hydrochloric acid, and then this creates the heartburn and all these, over acidity in our systems. So it's just these little simple things like chewing our food that can really affect our well-being. And a lot of that has to do with slowing down and being aware, being awake. So, the one more thing I'd like to say is that, time has led me to understand, and my experience on Earth has led me to understand that, the condition of our Earth really is a direct reflection of our relationship with ourselves. We see all this pollution and, like how we're like putting all these fertilizers and chemicals in there, and then we're eating all this processed food. And, just like I invite you all to see this kind of, this direct parallel there. So let me see, is there anything? I'll take a question while I'm looking at my notes or a comment.
What are some tips you have when going to the grocery store?
Well, I could go on, and I would love to get into so much, but well, go for whatever's in season. You go to the produce aisle, and whatever is the brightest color, whatever looks ripe, let the food talk to you. I love to say, I was telling someone, eat a rainbow. Nisi was saying that, or somebody, it was Shannon, was saying that the brighter the colors on your plate, intuitively that it's healthier for you. Think about the bright red beets, the dark green kale. It's true, there's is it called lipoic acid? Anyway, just bright colors, look for what's in season. Again, in the US, go to the edges of your supermarket and try to stay out of the processed, canned, frozen foods. We want to eat food that's alive. And also, unfortunately, there's this label organic. I really feel like the label should be non-organic, because organic is how, how nature intended our food to be. It blows me away how far removed we are from food today. And like I said in the beginning, it's because there's so much, the reason there's so much imbalance and disease in our world today is because we've lost that connection with, that clear understanding of how food is, the earth, this whole, we would regard so much more. I feel so strongly about if a child has a raised bed from the moment they're in kindergarten until they're seniors in high school, in 12 years we can change the earth, change the world, because just stewarding the earth through growing their own vegetables. Like my friend Ron Finley says, if a kid grows kale, he's gonna eat kale. You know what I mean? It's like they're curious. That's how I was, and it took me 22 years to figure that out. I grew up in a suburb of Texas. So did I answer your question? Okay, I have 2 minutes. Okay, anyone else?
A quick question about eating the food, and I've from time in Africa and in Asia, something that I've always found really amazing about those cultures is that you put one plate of food in the center and you all eat from the same bowl, and you eat slowly, and because you're being considerate of other people, and so you digest it more effectively. It's always a really good feeling. Is there an opportunity for that here in the States? Do you think that? This is New Zealand, but in the West, that's something that I feel like the East did well.
Absolutely, I agree. Well, the issue is just that we're always in such a hurry. We've kind of forgot the magic of what happens around a table. When we're breaking bread and when we're sharing food, we're sharing stories. That's such a magical time. And like just the other day, we had a dinner for 9. You weren't here yet, but I really love when you can have at the table, put all the food on the table so everyone can just see everything in front of them. And then we can see how much is left and share it. And that way you can see all the colors. It's just, I like to do it that way, but it's about, how do we tell the masses that, Did I answer your question? Yes.
To
Or
respond,
maybe yes.
To respond to Adam, you're looking for opportunities to do that. Well, I invite you to try out Ethiopian food.
Yes.
Where people share from a plate, use your hands to eat, and actually feed each other as well. Yeah, so I invite you to try that out. There's a new restaurant in Wellington that's open.
I love it. Anything else?
So first of all, the food that you have been preparing for the last, it's been amazing.
Thank you.
And I was watching our dear Shannon eat. If you've ever noticed her eat, she just every bite is an experience. And, you know, she's the last one done. And I really learned something from that, watching that, and when you amplified that. So I thank you for that, because that's something I can really transform in 2014, is just bring more awareness and consciousness to slowing down eating and really thinking, not thinking, feeling the food go in. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get her to hurry up.
Yeah, it's at 30 right now, so we have.
Well, I just say that was fantastic. I agree. Everything you said, I thought was just really great.
Thank you.
But I want to really really need time to answer a question. But I'll be really interested in what Ayurvedic things would say about the water and how you should drink water and what type of water you should drink. Do they have a whole tradition about the water as well?
Who?
About water, the Ayurvedic.
Oh, Ayurveda.
Do they have a whole sort of thing about how you should take in water and how to do?
It's interesting. They encourage you not to drink anything when you're eating. Yeah, I don't. You know, I'm a believer in drinking water. I think it's very important to drink a lot of water every day, because we need pure water to regenerate our cells. You know, not like flavored water, even lemon water, which is great for the alkalinity. But we also need to drink pure water a lot. I can't speak in the name of Ayurveda on water. I do know that they say that when you drink water, it muddles the digestive fire. Because there's this, Agni is the digestive fire, that when you eat food, you shouldn't drink water because it will lessen the digestive fire. That I do know. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. I mean, it's just the energetic of water itself as well, because all sorts of waters have different energies. And I was just wondering what they might say about that, but it's probably a long answer.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even go into the elements. You know, one of the great foundations of Ayurveda says that everything in nature is made up of the 5 elements, which are earth, water, fire, air, and space. Each food that we eat is a combination of this, as are we. So, and you know, we have this whole classification system in Ayurveda where, although we are conglomerations of all 5 elements, we classify each other by our predominant elements. And so this provides a basis for, you know, the goal is to live in balance, so that if we have a lot of earth and water energy in our earth and water in our constitution, the idea is to stay in balance by eating a lot of foods that have a lot of air and space. So it's like always in balance. Like I happen to have a lot of air and space in my constitution. So if I continue to eat a lot of air and space foods, then I'm going to be up in the clouds and forgetful and you know, kind of airheaded. So it's important for me to eat a lot of earth and water foods that are going to ground me down. A lot of root vegetables, soft succulent fruits like mangoes, stews. You know, these things that'll keep me warm, because I have a tendency toward cold. You know, it's a very fascinating science, which is another talk for another day. Yeah, okay, thank you.